I am going to be recording this session, so if you have, if you're unable to participate in the whole thing or you have somebody else in your office that you think will benefit from this, please let them know. Yep, we're recording. Okay, so just a few reminders. One, please don't put us on hold. If you need to step away from your phone, mute your phone rather than put it on hold. If you put it on hold, then you're going to subject everybody to your hold music. Not that it's bad, but it's hard to continue on with the training session when you have music playing in the background. In addition, if you would hold your questions, either write them down and shoot me an email with them, or let's wait till the end. And if there are questions that come up, I'll put together an FAQs for those. But otherwise, if you could hold them to the end, that would be fantastic. So, that being said, today's training session, we're going to go over admin functionality. Not every single thing of admin functionality, but a lot of the things that I think are going to be beneficial for you. Some of the things that we're going to talk about have been in the system for quite some time. Other things, not so much. Some of the things are newer. So, some of this may be familiar to you, and some of it maybe not so much. In any case, we're going to start with permissions. This system now, for those of you that have been users for quite some time, you know that having record level security is relatively new within the scheme of things within the system. When I talk about record level security, I'm talking about the ability to put individual permissions on records, a record by record basis. Okay, now, more often than not, when you're adding a new record to the system, you're putting something in, you're going to let the permissions be exactly the way they are. You're going to let the system dictate who sees what records based on the logins and passwords that you have set up. But the record level security does allow you to put individual permissions on a record by record basis. For example, if you have a comp or a closed deal that you want to put into the system, but maybe your broker has a CA agreement, a confidentiality agreement with their client, you could still put it in, but put it in as private. Maybe you have an agent that has a pocket listing. They need it in the system, but they don't necessarily want it visible to everybody else in the company. You could put that in as private. When you're creating a brand new record in the system, and I'll just go with a contact, under the contact settings, you're going to notice here are the permissions for this individual record. The default is for it to be public, for everybody to view it. Everybody can see it. If you want it private to just you, then you're going to put it to only me. If you have a team of people that you want to put it into, you could put team security on it, so only the team would have the ability to see it. Just a side note, if you are planning to add individuals as having permissions to see the record, okay, you need to do that after the record is created, because your options here are public to the whole company, private to just you, or private to a team. But once the record is created, you then have the ability to go in the colored ribbon. It will always be in the colored ribbon, the permissions link. When you click on it, you're going to come to a screen that looks similar to what you're looking at now. And the idea here is, if you look at these rectangles down here at the bottom, these are the different user groups, the security user groups. Any user whose login and password has one of these user groups is going to have the ability to see this record. Here are teams and locations. So the San Diego location and office leasing say, of these fields on the form, which are the ones that you always want to make sure we're populating. Color code those ones. That way you're having somebody else somewhat help make that decision, so you're not doing it in a vacuum. Now, if you do what I said, which is expand all, do a right click of your mouse and a print, I would, again, recommend that you do this in Internet Explorer. Here's the reason. And now I'm not talking about customizing the form. I'm just talking about doing a right click and a print. Because if you do it in Chrome, and Chrome is a browser that I use. I prefer Chrome. That's the browser that I use day in and day out. However, when you're going to print out the form, do it in Internet Explorer. For the simple reason, if you are in Chrome and you do a right click of your mouse and a print, is what it will print is what you are looking at on the screen. So it's going to make it down to the bottom here, half this field and everything above it, just where my mouse is moving around in a circle. Only what's on the screen that you can see on the screen is what's going to print. If you do it in Internet Explorer, the same exact thing, expand all, right click of your mouse and a print, it will print the whole form, even the parts of the form that you're not able to see at the bottom without scrolling to get to it. It's going to most likely be on more than one page, because this isn't all going to fit on one page because there's so many fields of information here. But the idea is, if you do it in Chrome, you're going to have to do it section by section. Do it in Internet Explorer, you can get the whole thing all in one shot. Just make sure you hit expand all. Okay. I would highly, highly recommend that you simplify your forms. Again, I'm always surprised and shocked when I go into one of your systems and I see that it hasn't been done, because that can only help. Just one word of caution. There are times where I've had one of you send me an email saying, I can't find this, or where is this field, or where is that field. In some cases, it's because it was hidden. Someone else hid it and either did not let you know, or maybe you were the person that hid it and you just forgot. But the idea is, there are times where you're going to be looking for something and it's not there. If you know that the field was there, chances are you had hidden it. Go to the bottom and say, remove all customizations. Excuse me. Customize it, and then you'll be able to get to the fields that you want. If there's a field that was hidden, you'll just see the icon for the wrench and screwdriver. You won't see the field, you'll just see the wrench and the screwdriver. If you're ever really unsure where that field is, go to your development site. Go onto your development site and take a look at the form on the development site, and you'll see exactly where the field is. Or shoot me an email and I'll help you find it. Not a problem. Okay? But please do that. It can only help your experience and your other users' experience. For so long, I have people say, how can we get rid of fields? There's so many things on here that we don't use. Use the simplify, customizing the form. Oh, just another side note, guys, you can hide whole sections if you want. If you want to do a whole section, you can hide the whole thing all in one shot. If you notice, I've got right here a wrench and screwdriver next to the property name and address section. So if you want to hide the whole section, you can do that. I'm going to remove all customizations, and now all that stuff is back. Okay. All right. Next thing I wanted to talk about was the dedupe tool. Now, you guys are going to find the dedupe tool in the contact section. And the idea behind the dedupe tool, this is something you do not need to be a network administrator to have access to use this tool. But is what you do need is this specific user group. So look what I did. I hovered over admin and I clicked on logins, and it loads a list of all the logins in the system. If I put my mouse on or near the little blue arrow, one of the choices is user groups. If you click on that, these are the different user groups in the system. These are the different components of security. This is what's giving your users the ability to see and do different things in the system. So if you notice, we're talking about the dedupe tool. If I come down to contacts, here it is right here. You do not need to be a network administrator, but you do need to have this user group added to your specific login and password if you want to have access to that tool. And the idea behind the dedupe tool is this allows you to get rid of duplicate contacts. So I'm just going to do a search, and let's go with Nathan. I'm going to copy his contact. I'm purposely making a duplicate record. All right, so now let's just do a search here. There are duplicates. And if you look at the ID number over on the right, the lower the ID number, the older the record. The larger the ID number, the newer the record. So the bottom one is our duplicate. I'm going to open up Nathan's record here, and I'm going to put a note in that says this. This is entered on the dupe. And let's schedule a callback here for Friday. Okay, so now we've added to our duplicate, we've added a note that was entered, and we have a callback that was scheduled. And if there are other things that are attached to the duplicate record, for example, any projects they're attached to, any closed deals, availabilities, comps, properties, whatever it is, groups that they're in, relationships that they have, anything that is attached or linked to the duplicate record, when you dedupe them, you're going to strip everything that's attached to the duplicate, link it to the one you're keeping, and then the duplicate goes away. So you don't lose any of the information that's linked to the duplicate records. And you may have 3 or 4 or 5 different duplicates, doesn't matter. You're going to select all of the duplicate records. From the I want to pull down, you're going to choose deduplicate the selected records. And it's going to come up with a little table that looks like this. As I scroll over, you notice all the information here. This is going to help you identify which record is the one you want to keep based on the information that's entered. Select the one that you want. Okay? Now, when you do, you notice I've got information here. As I scroll over the fields on the bottom, you see there's a little blue arrow right there that's facing up. The idea here, guys, if you have a record that has information, for example, let's go to phone number. You decide that the top record is the one you want to keep, but the bottom record has a better phone number. You can hit the little up arrow and it moves the data from here, it'll move it up into that field. So then when you dedupe it, the record you're keeping has the right information. I'm going to hit submit and deduplicate the records. Depending on how much information is attached to the actual records that you're deduping, can dictate how long it takes. It's complete. Now, here's your chance to either undo it or to finish. If you hit undo, it puts it all back the way it was before you started. If you hit finish, you notice I didn't have to do anything and the other Nathan record went away. If I open this one up, look at the note that was entered. This is entered on the dupe right here. That's what I entered. If I go to activity and I go to callbacks, there's the callback that I entered on the duplicate record. You can see how it was stripped out of that one and now attached to this one. But there's something else I wanted to point out. See this information right here? And this information, investor profile data, this information and this information. If you notice the fields here, contact system type, contact type, first name, last name, look at all these fields of information. The idea, guys, when you dedupe a record, it captures all of the form data, all this information that's on the form that doesn't get brought over. It doesn't automatically update the new record. But is what it does do is all that information goes into the note field of the record you're keeping. So if the duplicate record did have other phone numbers, other information that you weren't sure, you didn't want to lose, but you weren't sure if it was right or not, you're capturing all of that data. Now, you do have the ability, let me just get rid of these, you do have the ability to do this. Look. You do have the ability to do this when you're deduping the records. Here, let's say all three of these are duplicates. I want to deduplicate the selected records. Do you see this right here? Remove the data in the contact profile memo from the winning contact record. If you select that and then dedupe it, that information that I just showed you in Nathan's record in the notes section, all the form data, that will not be copied over. So if you don't want that information coming over, you don't have to have it. But by default, the information from the deduped records is automatically going to show up in the note field. And it's actually this one right here. And you see this is the ID number, 10681. Okay. So the dedupe tool is going to be extremely useful for you, especially in terms of keeping your data clean and the integrity of your data good. If you see duplicates, go through and use the tool and get rid of them. You can always do a dedupe worksheet, and that's something you can just work with me on. But this is something that all of you have the ability to do yourself. All of you can do this at any time, as long as you have that user group. I would recommend giving it to people within your company who are entering data, people who are using the system a lot, who you know will use that tool responsibly. Give them the ability to do it. And if they see a dupe, have them dedupe it. The more people that are doing that, you will notice the integrity of your data will continually get better and better. Because you will have duplicates. There's really very little way around that when you have other people entering data and it's not just one person. You have the ability to create dupes in the system if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. Or if we're migrating data in from your Outlook Sync, using the Outlook Sync tool or just other data sources, you're going to have duplicates. Use that dedupe tool. There's another tool here that I wanted to point out, which is the Update Selected tool. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this tool, but the idea here is this is also controlled by a user group. So if I hover over Admin and I click on Logins, here's my list of logins. I'll just go to this one, Albert Einstein, and click on User Groups. I just want to point something out. For comps, here's Update Selected. For contacts, here's Update Selected. If I scroll down, listings, here's Update Selected. Properties, Update Selected. I'm just trying to illustrate or point out the fact that we have all these different user groups for the different types of lists that you're going to come across in the system. Each list has its own Update Selected user group. So just because I give it to somebody in contacts doesn't mean they can do it in properties or availabilities or comps. Each one is individually managed via the user groups. But the idea is, if you have a list of contacts, for example, if I select this first page, I can hit next and go to the next page if I want. Or I could just select individual records. You can do as many pages as you want. But the idea is, from the I want to pull down, update the selected records. The idea here, this allows me to update on all 50 records. It tells me right here it's 50 records it's going to be updating. All 50 records, I can update any of these fields that I want on all 50 records at the same time. You know where this is going to come really handy, guys? If I come here to availabilities, I just want to pull up a list of them. So here's availabilities. I select these. I want to update the selected records. Choose a field to edit. Look, here's all the fields that you can manipulate. Well, there's one here, publish to web. All of you should be familiar with the publish to web. But the other place that a lot of people will use this tool, listing brokers. If you have an agent that leaves the company and you need to remove their name from a bunch of availabilities all at the same time, you can do that. If you need to add someone else joins a specific team and their name needs to be added to a bunch of availabilities all at the same time, you can do that. If you have an agent that leaves, they keep their availabilities go with them, but they no longer work at Lee & Associates. You can change their company on all of them at the same time. If you have an owner that changes their company name, you can change that all at the same time on a whole bunch of records all at once. That update selected tool is going to be useful when you need to go in and manipulate the same, you're updating the same information on more than one record. Instead of going individually record by record, you can use the update selected tool. It's not every single field, but it is the more common fields that you will need. I would encourage you to take a look at this. Manage as a project. If you guys decide you want to start using pipeline in your availabilities, you can update that on your availabilities all at the same time. And as I showed you, the update selected tool is going to be available on different lists in the system. Contacts, properties, availabilities, comps. You're going to see that same update selected tool in the I want to pull down on all of those lists. If you don't have permissions to do it, you can click on it and it's going to say you don't have permissions to use that tool. And I don't remember the exact nomenclature, but basically it just won't let you do it. So I would encourage you to, all of you, to take a look at that update selected tool. And also take a look at your logins and see who has access to it and should they have access to it. Because while it's extremely helpful, that tool, the dedupe tool, while it's extremely useful in helping you keep the integrity of your data good, if you have someone who is either malicious or you have someone who just isn't paying attention to what they're doing, they can mess up the integrity of your data just as easily as they can clean it. As a matter of fact, they could probably mess it up even faster than if they were cleaning it up. So make sure that you're giving that user group and the ability to use those tools to people who you know will use it responsibly. Okay? All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about was inactive records. For those of you that have been users of our system for quite some time, all of you know, I hopefully have burned it into your brain that we don't delete data, we don't delete records from the system. Instead, we deactivate them. We make them inactive. Now, in the past, for those of you that have been users for a while, you know that to deactivate records, it was a kind of a convoluted thing. To get back to those records that you deactivated, you went into something called data tools. Didn't make much sense. It wasn't very intuitive at all. Well, that's been changed. If I open up a record and you need to get rid of it, remember, we don't delete records. It never will permanently be deleted. The only way to permanently delete a record would be to edit the record and go field by field and remove every piece of information. And even then, the record would still exist. It would just be a blank record. But the record itself would still be there. If you need to get rid of one, you're going to, in the blue colored ribbon, you're going to deactivate it. It's going to confirm, are you sure? Hit OK. And if you notice, the deactivate turned into a reactivate link. And this is 655 West Broadway. Look, now it's deactivated. I'm going to do a new search here. It's not there. It's not in the data. It's not on my availabilities list because I deactivated it. If I go in and oops, that was the wrong one. I shouldn't have done that. I need that back. Only a network administrator can get to this. But if you are a network administrator, hover over admin, you see a link that says inactive records, contacts, projects, properties, availabilities and comps, signs. There are 236 deactivated, in this case, availabilities and comps. I'm going to refine my search. And of course, now it's not there. Well, this is embarrassing. It was 655. You know what? I'll bet. Did I go into? See if it's under properties here. I thought I deactivated the availability. Let's see. Nope. This works, folks. It really does. I promise you it does. I want to say this here is probably user error. Nope. All right. And I'll bet if I come in here, I go to inactive records and go to availabilities again. Let's see if, without the period. Nope. All right, son of a gun. It was 655. I was pretty sure of that. Let's do this. This is ID number 15874. This is already deactivated. Why reactivate? Oh, this is that same record. Here. Hang tight, folks. I just want to look at something here real quick. So this is 707. The space had a different address. This is ID 15874. All right. Well, I'm not doing a very good example, a very good job of pointing this out to you guys, but I promise you that it does work. Let's do this one. Let's deactivate this as a property record. I'm going to deactivate it. Deactivate turns into reactivate. Admin, inactive records. Let's go to properties. There it is right there. I can open it up, reactivate it, and it puts it right back where it was. And I had problems with that availability because the space, it was an availability for the space, and the space had a different address in the building. I need to look into that more, but in any case, I did want to point out that the deactivating the records can only be accessed by a network administrator. If you hover over admin, that's where you're going to get to all of your inactive records. I can almost guarantee you that as you are using the system, if it hasn't already happened to you, you are going to have people that are going to come to you and say, I know I added this record and I don't know where it is. I can't find it anymore. And I know for a fact that I put it in there. Okay? Go to your inactive records. Look in there and see if you can find it. When you do, you can then go to your change log and see who is the person that deactivated it and when it was deactivated and the time it was deactivated. More often than not, you will find the person that comes to you and says, I can't find it, they're the ones that deactivated it. Not on purpose, but they're the ones that deactivated it. Go to the change log and it's going to tell you exactly who did it and when it was done. And mark my words, more often than not, the person that is looking for it, they can't find it, they're the ones that deactivated it. So, okay, moving right along. Let's talk about pull downs in the system. You have to be a network administrator to manipulate the pull downs. Okay? So when we talk about pull downs, you have here. We're talking about, for example, the multiple select boxes. That's also considered, that's a field you can customize, or the pull downs. These multiple select boxes, everywhere where you see, I mean, you guys all know what a pull down is. You have the ability to manipulate not every single one, but as a network administrator, you can come in under admin. If you hover over that, go to pull downs, there are over 200 different pull downs in the system that you can manipulate or you can change. You can add values, you could remove values, or you could reorder them if you want. I'm going to refine my search and I'm going to pull up a pull down here, communication file type. I figured this is an easy one to illustrate what I want to show you. If I click on that, in the current pull down, these are the different values that you will see in the pull down. If I want to add a new one, I'm going to hit the new button, the green circle with the white plus in the middle. I'm going to repeat it in the code. I'm going to say this is active, and I'm going to hit submit. When I go to a contact record now, here's my guy. I'm going to go to the form. Environmental study, that's what we just put in. And you notice it's in alphabetical order. If you want it in a different order other than alphabetical, you can do that by using the sort field. If you notice here, there's a sort. Let me just edit one of these. Right here. In that sort field, the larger the number, the lower down on the pull down it would be. For example, I'm going to go to add another one. As long as there are no other values with a sort number higher than 999, other will always be at the bottom. Even though it shows here in alphabetical order, other will always be at the bottom because it has 999 in it. Let me kind of caution you. If you are going to use a sort, you do need to put a number in all of them. If I put a number like these, have just a number in some of them, it'll do all the values with all the pull down values without the number will be in alphabetical order first, then the ones in with the numbers, with the sort number, will be in the order based on that number, but below the ones without it. So if you are going to use a sort because you want other to always be at the bottom, you do need to put a sort number in all of the other values, all the other fields. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If you are going to put a sort in, the way this was done, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't do that. That's not good practice. That'll end up coming to bite you in the behind later on. Is what I mean by that is you should start, the lowest number you should start with is the number 5, and you should jump every 5. That way, if you do have another value that you want to put in between, you don't have to go back and renumber all the others. If you start with 5, you have room to put some values in front of it. And if you jump every 5, you have room to put values in between. Okay? So, I would encourage you to go through and take a look at your pull downs. This is another place where I guess I shouldn't be, but I am somewhat surprised when I go into some of your systems that you've been using it for so long, yet there are values that you guys still have that you'll never use ever. There are default values that we put in the system years and years ago. You'll never use them. Get rid of those fields. Something that might make it easier for you in terms of the same type of thing I was talking about with the form customizer, printing out the forms and having somebody else help make the decision as to what you want, what they want. Do the same thing with the pull downs, except with the pull downs, it's somewhat easier because you could just hover over admin, click on the link pull downs, and it brings up all the pull downs you can manipulate. From the I want to pull down, export all of them. And so this is, the pull down is AC. These are the different values in AC. So maybe go through, and if there's stuff that you don't want, have whoever is helping you with this highlight them. Or whatever. The highlighting means you need to get rid of it. If you want to add something new, just add a line. Just make sure they somehow indicate on the spreadsheet what they want, what needs to be added, and what needs to be removed. But if you notice, these are all the different pull downs in the system, and then the different values. Right? So just go through, here's building class, for example. Tells me class is the field, and then here's the values. On the spreadsheet, have somebody help make the decision what you guys want. Then you could always take that back, and based on what's on the spreadsheet, you can start updating your system. It doesn't have to be done all at once. Maybe do one pull down a day or one a week or whatever it is. I don't know. But the idea is it doesn't have to be an overwhelming project. But the most important thing is figuring out what stuff is important to you guys as a company and what stuff isn't. And you will find that there's quite a bit on there that is not important to you. Simplify your system. Get rid of the fields you're not using. Get rid of the pull down values that are not relevant to you guys as a company. There are certain ones that you cannot manipulate. Those you don't have to worry, just because you can't change them even if you wanted to. But everything else that you can change, I would take advantage of that and really, you know, work on simplifying your system. Simplify the pull downs, simplify the forms themselves. It will definitely make your experience and other people's experience, other users in your system, a better experience. So, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and hopefully that all makes sense, the last thing I wanted to talk about was exporting. Exporting data out of your system. And you're going to be able to do this when you export the data. You're going to be able to, one, some of you just want the data in an Excel spreadsheet. But the other thing is, I like using the export as a way to kind of audit your data, to look at the data in Excel all at once. You can put filters on it and make it easier on you to look at all the data. If I hover over admin again and I click on logins, we're going to go back to our user groups. You do not need to be a network administrator to export data out of the system, but you do have to have the appropriate user group. Now, there are certain lists that you will be able to export, that your users will be able to export without having a user group, like their list of projects. Any user can come in here, click on, if you guys are using projects, click on projects and export them. Because the default list that loads are your projects. The idea is if you want to export your stuff, go ahead, right? However, for these different options, if you want to give somebody the ability to export any of these lists, they do need to have a specific user group. A lot of you who have been using the system for a while know we haven't always had that. It kind of was open. And maybe it didn't happen to any of you, but we definitely had quite a few of our clients over the years tell us that they had agents basically steal their data and start their own companies. When you export the data, it does let you export 10,000 records at a time. Before you give these user groups to specific individuals in your company, make sure that you don't feel that there's any sort of danger or threat to giving that to them. Again, if you give your agents, all your agents, comps and listings and tenant expirations, tenant lease expirations, and they could export those 10,000 records at a time, you know that lots of times you have specific agents that kind of jump from shop to shop. They don't stay put very long. Well, if they can pull out 10,000 comps at one time, press of a single button, 10,000 lease expirations, it makes it pretty easy for them to go somewhere else and already have somewhat of a book of business, have data that you and your company spent a lot of time and energy and cost to get into your system. Don't give somebody the ability to pull it out in one fell swoop, 10,000 records at a time, unless you're sure that that person is somewhat going to be trustworthy. I don't need to elaborate on that anymore. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But the idea is you can come in and here for availabilities, pull up a list. There's, close to 6,000 records. Export all the records on the list. There's quite a few, and different lists are going to have different options. I'll choose the detailed export. Depending on the amount of records that you're exporting is going to dictate how long it takes. In addition to which, if you've already had Excel open earlier on your computer, then it's going to be faster. If you haven't had Excel open, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but the idea is you could come in and look. Maybe I want to do something like this. Okay, so that's all I did. I froze the top row, I put a filter on it, but now maybe you can come in and say, okay, show me all the records that are published to web as no. And you pull all those up and say, okay, well wait, these are ones that need to be marked as published to web as yes. Or just in terms of auditing your data, looking at certain information and seeing which ones of these don't have a listing broker, right? Or who do listings for a specific person, or whatever the case is. This is going to hopefully allow you to audit your data. You can look and see which fields have which fields have blanks. This is a good, the blanks is a good one. Be able to pull up and say, okay, we've got these 7 records that don't have any address. Maybe they're a piece of land that's not developed. In this case, they're not, but this is also just demo stuff. But in your system, that's going to help you audit your data. You could do the same thing for a city or a state or any of these fields. See which ones don't have the information, especially the fields that are important to you guys as a company. This will allow you to look at a whole bunch of them all at the same time, the ones that don't have it. And from that, you can maybe identify why they don't have it. So, in any case, you have the ability to export. As long as you have the user group, you have the ability to export all of those lists that I showed you, 10,000 records at a time. You just have to have the user group. make sure that I would encourage you to audit your logins and passwords. Make sure that you don't have specific users that all have the ability to export if you think that there's any sort of threat of them stealing your data. Hopefully none of you have that case, but I would still take advantage of those user groups. If someone needs that much information, have them go to you, have them go to marketing, have them go to an admin, something like that, where at least it sets off red flags. Because when does someone need 10,000 comps all at once? They're not going to present that to a client. Unless they're doing some sort of analysis on the data, there really is no reason for anybody to ever have that. So if someone's coming to you asking for it, that should set up some red flags. At least prompting the question, why do you need that? Maybe they have a very legitimate reason. So in any case, hopefully you all found this beneficial. I know that we kind of were over a minute or two, but does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? You are certainly welcome to email them to me and I'll put an FAQs together. Yes.
This is Victoria, LA North. The deduping process, does that also work with customers?
It does not. The dedupe tool is only built into the contacts right now.
So there's no way we can delete duplicate customers when we're creating an invoice? You know, when we do a search and all these names come up and they're all the same?
There is not. That's something we can do a data cleanup for you and dedupe those, Victoria, but it's not something you have a tool to do, to use. Is what some people will do though is they will edit that customer record and change the length, because you can't delete them, right? But you can change it and they'll put like do not use all in caps or something. So when it pulls it up, you'll see there are 3 of them that say do not use and then the one that says is the right one. You clearly know that you're not going to use the ones that say do not use.
Okay.
That's just if you didn't want to go have us clean those up for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And like I said, I'll put together an FAQs for those. Otherwise, check the Insider if you think anybody else would benefit from this training, or if you want to see it again, the video will be posted on the Insider. Same place that the other videos are posted. And have a fantastic day and a good rest of your week, everybody.